something when Tommy joins us. We want to talk about it because that is just absolutely crazy.
I want to make a point
back,
about
welcome
that.
back. We continue our discussion here with my guest, Father Michael Lewis, Communications Officer of the Roman Catholic Church, Pastor Glen Samuel, Seventh-day Church, Cheryl from Seventh-day Adventist Church, and Cheryl Rymond, Cultural Consultant. They're all here with me. Pastor, we're talking during the break about back in the day, how 9 nights used to be and the different types of funerals. What's the form? And it has changed, obviously. But from your memory, how was the 9 night back in the day and the grieving process?
Well, this very old man will tell you that.
Looking handsome, though, I must say, right?
This very old man knows that the 9 nights was a time when the entire community would come together to assist the grieving family. I can go back to days when there were no funeral homes as you have now, when the dead body would be kept at home and you pack him with ice and stuff like that.
Yes.
And during that period, the coffin was made during those evenings. The grave was dug during the period. The grass was cut, the home was cleaned up. And so during that period, you have a rallying together of the community, coming to show support, to assist the family, particularly if the persons were poor. You'd have folk coming, bringing food, bringing board to make the casket, bringing stuff to build
All
the
the
vault.
carpenters and everybody would come. It's a community effort.
Exactly. And then the night before the funeral, they'll sing these traditional songs and, celebrate and stuff. And then the day of the funeral, folk would dress in a modest, sober fashion, knowing you're coming to church. The grief is still there. And even when there were points of celebration from the life of the deceased, it was with a conscious reflection as to the values those persons live by and what lessons can be learned by the young generation.
Cheryl, from a cultural perspective, is the mixing or the blurred lines between the secular and the sacred, which is the church, is it a demonstration or a manifestation of the general societal breakdown and degradation that we're having, that people are going into church, some of them, their medulla oblongata exposed? I've seen a young girl in a funeral, I swore I saw her heartbeat, and I was very offended, because to me, when you're coming to the house of the Lord, you need to dress appropriately. You, as Pastor and Father and I were talking about earlier, you wouldn't wear a tuxedo to the beach. You would not wear a bathing suit to a graduation. So if you're coming to a church, why come scantily clad? Is this just another manifestation and extension of our social, degradation?
Yeah, well, it is a matter, we're talking about it in between. It's a mindset. It's a kind of specific orientation within that family, within that community. That whether you say the lines are blurred, because we hear about the biggest gunman praying to God, using his Bible, etc. So there is a sense of the sacred versus the secular. But when it comes to something where you have an opportunity to display that you have some sense of wealth, some sense of becoming something other than what you are, very poor and destitute and whatever, and you live in hand to mouth. The notion that you have such an event where you can display the best of yourself.
But isn't that false pride, though, Father? I mean, because in the ultimate of it, all right, calculation of it, if it is that I have to exhibit and portray this grandiose event, when in truth and in fact, I didn't live that kind of life.
Or the
person didn't live that kind of life. Is the funeral then a kind of showpiece
in
and showcase?
Yes. In a sense, yes.
Yes, always
And I must confess, part of my problem with many of these funerals, or many funerals, because you also have your more traditional type funerals, everybody's nicely dressed, you'd have a problem with it.
Oh, yes.
But the expense that is displayed is a problem.
Talk to me about
that. Because I know that there are many times that individuals go way out of their way and they spend an exorbitant amount of money on the type of casket. Why do you need to have a glass casket? Right? And then the
chariot,
600 funeral wreaths, and the very lavish kind of program on glossy paper and all of that. They spend a lot of money, and I know that many of these families go and borrow that money And then after the funeral,
Tomorrow morning?
then they come back when nobody's around. They come to us in the office and then they say, Father, you know what? I need your help. Because I really just put myself now in debt.
Yes.
Now I have a child who is in school and I cannot pay that school fee. Can you help? I have my light bill to pay. JPS going to lock off my light. Can you help?
Misplaced
And
priority.
they show, you know, they come with all of these. And many times I look at them and I go, okay, fine. Why not? Because I now have to use that as a teaching moment. And I will go, why did you feel the need? After we spoke to you about all of this, why did you feel the need to go and get a $10,000 hairdo when you could not afford it? Why did you feel the need to go and get a casket that costs $400,000 when you could have, you know, gotten a casket for less than half of that amount?
Yes.
Why did you think that you had to
What
go
do they
the
say,
route of
Father?
getting
What
a
are their
chariot?
responses? What do they say?
They go, Father.
In defense of themselves.
Honestly, many will go, Father, you don't know how it go. You have to do it because you have to show the people them, because if you don't show the
That's
people
it.
them that, then they're going to
Peer
look
pressure.
at me in a particular way.
Not just you, but the person who is deceased. That's the point I was trying to make.
Yes.
It's not just about themselves. Funerals, people go out of their way to have the proper funeral with all of the gloss and glitter. Those who can afford, and sometimes, usually those who can afford don't need to exhibit that.
Yes.
But those who are less equipped, and if the person, they need to show that this man was of standing. It's almost a measure
Yes.
of the man, of the person,
individual.
of the
Yes.
individual's work
Yes.
that is
Yes.
deceased. So how you represent on
Unfortunately,
their
yes.
behalf is as important as they're representing themselves.
Yes.
So I wouldn't call it a misplaced prayer. As I said, it's a different mindset.
But then, Cheryl, if it is that you're going to have a marquee event and you're going to have this grandiose display, and then tomorrow you're going to go to Father and ask him for the light bill or the lunch money, I think it's priorities being misplaced.
But it's
Very
the same.
much so.
It's the same way that they spend this lot of money to go to a dance.
Yes. Father,
And they can't pay the school fees and they can't do this. But it's that moment.
let me ask Pastor though, Pastor Samuels, is it that the church though has to, because obviously it's becoming more popular, it's becoming more widespread. I'm not quite sure if it's also in rural Jamaica that persons are delving into this kind of dancehall or bling funeral as well. So it's everywhere now. Should the church, or has the church, or is the church in the process of really laying down stringent rules to say, listen, this is what is acceptable, this is what is not acceptable? I've heard of cases where there are fights in the church because, you know, the baby mothers come and I don't like you and I don't like you, and my baby passes about to cover first and you have to wait, and it's a lot of that in the church. How do you even recover, Pastor, from a fight in the church? Like, what do you then say now? I mean, face dig off, wig take off, clothes all disheveled. What do you say after that, Pastor, in your pastor voice? In the name of Jesus!
I rebuke you.
Yes.
The truth is, you know, the church has taken a stand in terms of its official position.
Yes.
That because of what has transpired in the past, having spoken repeatedly and sometimes without warning, it is thrusted on you. Because you go by the home, you sit and talk with them and they agree. And the day of the funeral, all that agreement is thrown through the window. So the church has taken the position. No more will it do these funerals. Sometimes, though, the particular congregation, maybe because of relatives connected to the family, may try to bend back and issue warning.
Yes.
And so we are seeing less and less of that, unlike the ones you mentioned earlier.
Yes, which we're going to delve into, Pastor, after the break. The beautiful Cheryl Rymond is here, Father Lewis as well. And we're going to be joined by some light, some more bright light, right after the break. So make sure you keep it right here on Impact.
The preceding segment of Impact was brought to you by Mega Mart Wholesale Club. Best value by far.